you have to put in the work, put in the effort, learn the skills, do the boring, mundane, I wanted to say like, they're not fun, they're not rewarding things for a long period of time. And then like you said, all of a sudden one day, it's just like, wow, it all paid off, and it just gets better and better and better and better and better. And it just compounds. We were literally talking about some amazing stuff that has to do with teams and responsibility and accountability and checks and balances. And we weren't recording. Like, this is like a literal pre-talk was like a great talk for the podcast. So I'm like, fuck it. Let's just hit record and roll with it. So if you're managing a team, or, you know, you're a manager, a CEO, owner of a business, an entrepreneur, like, fuck, this is going to hit you in the heart, man. You know, just a quick backstory, and obviously we're not going to put any names, but we have, you know, I have a team member in a position that's, you know, accountable for a certain department, and he tasked something to somebody, one of his subordinates, and the person said on it, and they never completed the task. And, you know, 5 or 6 days later, however long it's been, we've realized the task wasn't completed. And, you know, the frustrations on his end were like, hey, I tasked it and it didn't come back. And my response is like, hey, when somebody loses a war, do you go to the admiral? Do you go to the captain? Do you go to, you know, the head honcho there and say, hey, he lost a war? And they say, well, I told the soldiers to do this and they didn't do it. No, it's our job to live and die by our results. So we have to inspect what we expect. So when you task it to somebody, you confirm and inspect that it's done. Like, it's your responsibility to make sure that everything's working properly and going. And that's why, you know, you're the head honcho, you're paid the big bucks, you run the department. We live or die by results. And ultimately we accept personal accountability and personal responsibility for what goes on in our department. We can't pass the buck on to somebody else. If they made a mistake, we correct it, we talk to them about it. We explain why those mistakes are important, and why those are, you know, paramount to avoid, set up checks and balances to avoid them in the future, which Bob kind of shared his process, which I really like, and make sure that doesn't happen moving forward. And you know that if it's happened before, you need to check every time moving forward until you're at a comfort level to where you know it's going to be taken care of. And the communication has to be, hey, completed, done, boom. So like, I was just how to manage a team. Inspect what you expect.
So when we were jamming on it, like one of the big things that like fired you up was the fact that he passed the buck.
Yeah.
You know, like this issue, and it does sometimes happen. You know, mistakes happen. It's business. It's life. We're working with people.
Sure.
And as a result, instead of being like, oh shit, I should have been on top of it, it was, hey, I shouldn't have to remind this person.
Right.
It's like, listen, that's part of managing a team. You know, it's part of just overseeing people. That's part of being a leader. Like, good leaders don't say 100 different things. They say the same 1 to 3 things over and over again. So we have to inspect it. And it was funny because it's also something that happens, you know, in Gym Academy on our service side, on our agency side. You know, it's something that we had to solve for. So I took a note as you were talking that I think is important, because as we're talking about solving this and being on top of it and making sure it doesn't happen and putting the checks and balances to prevent this issue from coming again, I made a note where so many people, and this is actually when I was thinking about this morning of, hey, like, I want to jam on Angelo about the rise of Case Connect, what it looked like in the processes. And it
Let's be clear, you could never jam on me because my defense is impeccable. But keep going.
Damn, like, talk about. Not talk shit. Like, talk about.
I'm in rare form today,
my days of basketball are way over. But I made a note, because it's something you and I have talked about for years. And a lot of people are like, oh, agency games or gyms, like, there's such high turnover. You know, you can't get clients to stay. It's, you know, a lot of agency and service-based business owners have this churn and burn ecosystem where they constantly have to sign up new clients because they drop the ball when it comes to client services. And client services, you can think about the performance of my clients. If I'm an agency, am I performing as far as like providing the results that I promised upon? And then it's being on top of this kind of shit on the back end. It's like stuff falling apart and stuff breaking me down. And then what does it look like and how can I fix it? So that was, you know, one of the things that we did, we were talking initially about, you know, we have kind of just we just have everything sent in a Slack when something is like, if there's an ad request change, whether it's by the client or internally, like we're jamming with the client and we suggested switching it off or making some changes to the ads and stuff like that. Instead of hoping that it gets passed along and then gets done, like we have a form we fill out or they fill out.
Yeah.
It then gets sent. We use Slack, and I think we also use Monday is new, but we were also building, we just had a pipeline as well elsewhere. Monday is new, so I can't really speak on it. But that way at least says like who it is, what we're doing, boom. And then we have like indications, has it been completed or not? And then the team has the SOP for like when this happens, what needs to happen before it goes live, so that we can prevent any sort of interruptions, make sure that all the tech is, if the ads are built out and then the tech is built out and all that stuff, or if anybody's waiting on something, has to oversee it, it can get done. And that way everybody's on the same page, but it just doesn't get lost. And, so that's kind of like we were talking, but we also had it for like the client services side of thing. Same thing. If like a client has an issue or you're bringing an issue, you want to make sure the team's on top of it, because at the end of the day, if you're working with any sort of clients at volume and stuff is happening, like, and your employees have lives outside of work.
Yeah, they're going to miss
which is rare
stuff.
for us entrepreneurs. They're going to miss stuff.
We miss
it's
stuff
like,
too.
Yeah, 100%.
Nobody's perfect.
So it's like once something's missed, it's like, well, so our responsibility is how can we understand that mistakes are going to happen? So how can we identify it quickly and then prevent it as the best as possible? But then if a mistake happens, how to correct it fast. And then also not to pass the blame.
It's funny because we did this for our support tickets, right? Like I created the sub account for our support tickets and to track what's going on. But like, it's almost needed more in with our team, like internally. And I never even thought to create it internally to hold people accountable and responsible for what's going on. So, if you task something to somebody, like we should have a board to say like, hey, this wasn't completed. I'm supposed to launch this. Why wasn't this completed? Give me answers.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like it's all because hopefully if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing and we're doing it correctly, but less like we're not going to have other issues pop up for, along the way. So it's how do we prevent it as much as possible to try and essentially like, especially when it comes to agencies. Yeah. Service sucks. So this is a way to provide, it's amazing client experience. Yeah. And this is where if you're really good at acquisition and then you're really good at providing results and experience, like that's how you build a monstrous business, because then they don't leave. So it's just the checks and balances in there, I think is absolutely huge. And I also thought about it as part of like having these processes and these checks and balances. And I don't know if you've read it. We've definitely talked about it. I can't remember, but like E-Myth Revisited. Yeah. It was recommended to me to read, and it was one of the most, maybe, I guess, influential books for me in business, which it was Systemize Everything. Because I don't want to be the bottleneck who has to check on or has to make sure, because then what happens if I get sick or I get hit by a bus or a team member, they're responsible if they get hit by a bus or something like that. We need to have it systemized so that like those gaps of human error, aren't going to cause a disruption in the business. Because they're going to happen. So that's where it's inevitable. Yeah. Yeah. And you also have to be able to quickly change. Like that's where I shared with you our SOP for it. And like, that's not the first iteration of it, but it was like after some trial and error, it was like, hey, here's the best way that we can solve or identify whether it be issues or all that stuff, so that we have no hiccups, so that we move as fast as possible, so that we, just keep on crushing it. But and I think that's the other thing too in a system and processes, you can always change it. It doesn't have to be set in stone. Especially if your business is growing, like your systems are going to break. But if you want to have a real business that's not relying on you, you got to have systems and processes in place. Otherwise, you just have a glorified job, and it might be a high paying job, but it's still a fucking job. Yeah. Yeah. And your systems can be managed by good people, and you can hire good people and trust that the systems are going to be like the safety net or the, they're going to make sure that everything runs at 70-80% of what you could possibly do at your own. Yep. So you can scale quicker. Totally agree. So yeah, that was cool to jam on that. What topic did you want to cover today? Although we're already like 10 minutes in, and I know we covered. I mean, that was a lot. Well, I was thinking about two things. One, as I was lifting this morning, so I switched. I used to be very anti-lifting, One of the things I've done, or not anti-lifting,
Yeah,
anti-lifting
dude,
in the
I
morning.
literally sat here. I was like, "What are you talking about? What do you do? Pilates and yoga now?"
Yeah, meathead central. But like, I started missing more workouts because I used to really love working out at night. It's tough for me to get I don't know how some people can work out in the middle of the day. So it's not something I can do.
I hate it
because when I have stuff that I need to do or anything like that, like I can't fully get done. So I either had to lift in the morning or I had to lift at the end of the day. And generally I hated lifting in the morning. I like to kind of like cruise in my morning, wake up, drink coffee, read or whatever. But then I found myself really starting to skip workouts a lot. Like I'd just be tired. I'd be fucking smoked. Or then, wife and the kiddo would get home and like I'd want to spend time with them. And I was finding so many excuses not to work out. And it was impacting me because you know how like much better you feel, you move better, you think better, all that energy.
100%.
So then recently I switched over to working out in the morning and it's been fucking game changer.
Dude, it's such a game changer. It's like eat the frog. Just do that difficult workout, knock it out in the morning, just get it done.
Just get it done. So as I was lifting in the morning, I was like thinking about that. I was thinking about, even though let's say my training hasn't been as consistent the last probably year, 2 years, especially since I got hurt, physique wise, muscle wise, I haven't really made dramatic like losses or even like dramatic changes. But at the same time, like my nutrition hasn't been like as on point as it should be. And I realized like now it's easier now after training for 15 plus years to like, it takes less effort to maintain what I've built. Then I was thinking about, just business, growing business, and I was having a conversation with a buddy a couple of days ago, like, especially as Legion was growing, I was not working necessarily as much, like as far as like in the trenches, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it continued to grow. And so like the less I did, the more I removed myself, the better it got. Same thing now, like with Gym Academy, as we're blowing up, I'm still in the business plenty and doing lots of tasks and responsibilities. But even as we bring on more team members that are killing it, like I'm able to buy back some of my time. But the business continues to grow. And I was thinking about like with Case Connect, Muscle Legions, like, and how it continues to grow. You're not the one doing, like at your point, you're not doing the sales calls anymore, except for like here and there,
right?
Or some of the stuff, or even some of the client services and stuff. You're still very involved though, but it continues to grow. So that long-winded intro, I started thinking about the compounding effect of effort.
Yeah.
And, so I was like thinking about that.
Damn, I saw a good post today that goes with that. I wanted to share it and shit, I'll never find it again. Damn it.
Really? Damn. Yeah. Cause like, it's really, and I think some people, and like when I talk to gym owners that are getting like, let's say they've getting started or they've been started and struggling or whatever. I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, it's going to probably like, we enrolled a new client yesterday and I was like, it's like just him. He's got like one person running the gym who's doing a lot of the stuff, wearing a lot of the hats. And he recently got like literally fucking awesome dude. He tackled there was like a traffic stop and I think this guy like punched a cop, started running. So he fucking ran after, tackled the dude, popped his hip, tore his hammy. So like he's not able to get in the gym as much. And the goal is to continue to grow, like to grow that location, but then to remove it. And I was like, dude, to be honest with you, it's probably going to suck for the next 30, maybe even 60 days for you. Because you got to do a bunch of shit to get it to the point where you can start, having those really good systems in place, understand them, be able to teach other people, bring other people in, have the money to really afford other people and stuff like that. But as you start developing skills, as you start getting better things, as you develop skills of sales, as you develop, marketing, whatever, chops and stuff like that, it becomes easier down the road for the business or even for new endeavors. So I was like, just thinking about the compounding effect. And you could talk about compounding with money, with skills, with business, with growth. And then it's like, sometimes it can be a little slow, and then boom. Then you just get that hockey stick, which then made me start thinking about kind of like Case Connect.
Well, we named this podcast, small inputs, and the long version of that, small inputs consistently over long periods of time lead to, big outcomes. And, that I think that we can oversimplify this entire thing and say, I feel comfortable saying this, that having the ability to delay gratification is a superpower, right? And that's like the seed of all success. Because you're not going to read a book or take a marketing course and the next day put up an ad and be a billionaire. It's very, 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 very rare. If not, I don't know anybody that's done it. If they've done, please correct me. But if they have, it doesn't matter. It's not the norm. So you have to put in the work, put in the effort, learn the skills, do the boring, mundane. I'm going to say they're not fun. They're not rewarding things for a long period of time. And then, like you said, all of a sudden one day, it's just like, wow, it all paid off, and it just gets better and better and better and better and better. And it just compounds.
Well, it's interesting because even going on that, it's like, and going back to like, hey, this, like telling the dude, it's like, it's going to suck because if you're not good at something, you're not going to enjoy it as much. Let's say if somebody's not good at sales and they have to do sales appointments, sales calls and stuff like that in the beginning, they may not like it because it's something they're not good at. Nobody really enjoys doing things that they fucking suck at, except for like the small percentage of people in the world, because then they want to become great. But then that same thing, like you might hate sales, you might dread it. It might be like, oh, this is difficult. And then you get good at it and it doesn't feel like sales anymore and you look forward to it. And it's like, I had to build that skill. I had to kind of endure the suck for a little period of time. I then had to just constantly get that repetition in. Like that's why I always going back to like fitness and building muscle or losing weight is such a good analogy for fucking everything, because it's just over time. And then, then all of a sudden you're good at it. So you're not gonna be upset about it. You're not gonna be frustrated on it. You can teach other people how to do it, and then you can compound your efforts, your skills, your knowledge.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so true. I think that's a good point though. It's just delayed gratification.
It is.
That's everything.
Just to oversimplify everything. It's just like your ability to delay gratification. I've seen friends or colleagues change jobs like 4 times over the one time that I've just been stuck with the one business. And, it's like you just stick with one thing. And then we were talking about like Matt, I'm comfortable sharing his name here, but he stayed at car sales for a long time. He's actually making really, really good money right now. Right. And it's like, I know it's not a business, no, it's not an entrepreneur, but like, dude, he just did the same boring, mundane stuff every day. And he's like 6-7 years in and he's making really, really good money, making money like a doctor would make. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he did the boring stuff nonstop, day in and day out, and didn't stick with it. While another person who started with us is on like the 3rd job, making a fraction of it. And that's kind of like where it, delayed gratification, dude. Like sometimes the grass looks greener and you're just like, you want that instant gratification of like, oh, with this job, I get a car. Oh, and then you leave and you start all over. And it's like, dude, just stick with it. Delay the gratification. And it's everything in life, dude. You plant a seed and it just doesn't pop up and give you fruit. Like you gotta wait sometimes years for like fruit trees to bear fruit. And it's like, that's life, dude. That's business. That's success. That's finances. That's meaningful relationships. Like it's just delayed gratification is a superpower, and that's the seed of all success.
The more you put into it over time, it's just gonna give you like massive reward.
Yeah.
And as you're talking, it's like it's a good example with Matt because there's so many positions that you can really make a good income.
Sure.
And I was thinking about because obviously you and I both love cars, and I was like, fuck. Like, honestly, if you're able to sell cars that you enjoy, so you're around these cars you like and make good living, like that would be pretty fucking fun.
Yeah.
I've never sold cars before, but it's like, hey, if like that's a skill that I have, I'm able to earn a good income from it, and I get to be around stuff. Like I'm not stuck in a job that I hate or an environment I hate. Like that would absolutely suck. I literally just lost my train of thought because of ADD. You're
saying like sticking there is something you love to do with cars.
Oh yeah. Thank you. So then but it also makes me think about like for somebody who's just working a job, it's so true, especially like, I think you and I have talked about it. So many people I remember I was talking to a buddy of mine and he's in banking and he's like, oh, I want to start like entrepreneurship and stuff like that. I was like, dude, like you're in banking, which and on a career track where like your income potential is unlimited.
Yeah.
Like most entrepreneurs are not financially successful.
No.
Right now, especially with the ecosystem of social media, those that are successful, the small percentage are really highlighted. So you think it's the same, like
dude,
same thing why more people have body dysmorphia.
Smoke and mirrors, man. You think you think everybody's successful. It's crazy.
Yeah, so it's like when I talk to them, I'm like, listen, obviously I love entrepreneurship and there is the component of freedom, but it's not necessarily like you might work for yourself, but you might work now twice as much and it's going to take you potentially twice as long, or you just stick with where you're at and then set yourself up and then you can eventually do whatever you want. So it's like an interesting thing, whereas there is just with time, if you're in the right field, you can have a layer of success, whatever that means to you. And at the same time, for business owners, you know, it's this shiny object syndrome. You know, you start doing something and then maybe it's something that's new, you're not very good at it. And then you're like, oh, what about this idea? What about this thing? Or what about this thing? It's like, and that's what I was talking to somebody actually about Casey. I was like, literally they do one thing and they do it really well. And they've gone up to here. They haven't gotten distracted by doing other stuff. It's just this. So you could try to do all those other things, but there's a reason why so many people get stuck in a business at a certain income level, whether it be a gym, a fucking agency or whatever. It's because you've actually never gotten good at one thing. Instead, you're trying to do all these other things.
You get okay at this thing, okay at that thing. Like maybe it's like, that's all it is, dude. You just like float around, dude. You're just a jack of all trade, master of none, dude. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You'll never be successful that way, man. Ever.
No.
Ever.
And nothing wrong with like exploring new stuff and like testing. You're like, hey, you know, even like what we're doing in Legion right now, like we were talked about it at Westchester, we're testing a new service offering, but we're doing it in a beta run. And then we're going to reevaluate it in 12 weeks. And then if it looks good and promising, like it is now, we'll continue doing it.
Yeah.
And then once we really have it dialed in, then, you know, we can bring it to the rest of the franchise. But like first it's like, hey, let's test it. Let's do it. Like there's only there's actually two things. We brought in a new team member. I was like, hey, this is all you're focusing on for the next 12 weeks. Yeah. And then honestly, after the next 12 weeks, we might just fucking continue just focusing on this again, because this is all we need up until X point. You know, but like, you know, then you could test it.
That brings me back to John when he was like, I want to learn marketing, I want to learn all this stuff. I was like, I know you want to learn a lot about business, but like just master sales first. Just kept pushing, just master sales. Master sales. You're not there yet. Master sales, master sales. He's got really good. He's wearing his big boy pants now, which
that's awesome.
I've listened to his calls. We're reviewing them in the metaverse. You get so mad when I actually send you metaverse calls now because I know it pisses you off. Like I actually do it on purpose now because like you get like I'm zero interest in doing this. So like I make it a point to send it to you.
And I'm like, as I say that, I'm like, hey, maybe I'm that old cranky guy now, but
bro, you are. You see Taylor's reaction to that yesterday, the metaverse thing, dude. It's actually fucking. If you tried it for a week, you'd be like, oh, this is fucking cool.
Good for you guys. One of the reasons that I got into business is so that like, frankly, and the way I run these businesses is like, I have no problem. I love talking to my team.
Bro, you don't want to be around anybody. You're a fucking hermit.
I don't want to be around people.
Yeah, you're a fucking hermit.
Like that's why I'm in Montana doing my own fucking thing. I don't want to be in the fucking metaverse as if I'm in the city. I lived in Philly. I'm over that shit. Like, I'm done. So for you, you're like, oh, we're in the metaverse. I'm like, fuck, that sounds miserable. That sounds like I'm in an office. And I'd rather actually have an in-person office. It
totally feels like an office.
Than that. So I don't want to do that. Like that's not my life. That's not what I do.
Yeah, it totally feels like an office. Yeah, I don't know. That was pretty fucking funny.
I think let's just wrap it up though on that part with I think
you get pissed off at the metaverse.
I know. I guess I'm just fucking. I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna be in the next evolution of human beings.
I
Everybody else is. It's Ready Player One, and I'm sitting there cranky.
Dude, it's funny because since you said that, I don't know if it's like me noticing it now, but since you said that, every video I watch on like some kind of VR AR thing, it's like I feel like I'm in Ready Player One, and I'm like, God, ever since you said, dude, I never noticed it. It's like videos I've watched before and didn't notice it. Now that you said that, and I like Googled the movie, I notice it everywhere. Oh, real quick before we go, I know we're ending it.
Yes,
I ramble. You watched Arnold on Netflix?
I've watched a couple episodes. So
bro,
good. Have you?
So good. I'm only finished episode 1, but I mean, so good to where he said that when he would work out, and I was telling my team this the other day, I was like, he worked out, he said, for 3 hours with no music, and he would literally just imagine what it would look like what his life was going to look like when he moved to America, became rich, became famous, was like a world-renowned, Mr. Universe. Like he literally just worked out for 3 hours with no music and just his thoughts and his imagination. And holy crap, dude, Like, that's powerful, man.
Super. I mean, and that's, I would encourage, he has a autobiography that I read years and years ago, and it was so good. It's probably just like called
What's it
Arnold,
called?
probably some shit. I have no idea. It's probably called Arnold as well. But like, yeah, I watched that first episode and I was like, fuck, like, I actually remember that part. Because, dude, when I lived, I'm like clanging with music and shit like that, blasting.
Dude,
and
checking your phone,
silence,
texting.
yeah. And I was like, think about that level of determination and focus. And I think about that early on where, and you're probably similar when you first start developing these skills and you're obsessed with it. Yeah. Nothing else matters. I remember like when I was learning about fitness and gaining muscle, it's all I did 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
Like whenever I could be, I was on the computer and things were different back then. I was just learning, reading books and all that. And I was watching and it's silent. And you just hear that moving. And I was like, that's why he is who he is. Like he's on a different level, whether it be, you know, when he won something, when it's focus and stuff like that. And how many people, like everything, you know, he had no, like they weren't well off or anything like that. And he's like, I'm going to do these things. I'm going to put myself in these situations and I'm not going to give up even when, as you like continue to watch, things didn't go his way.
Right.
And how many people now would just be like, they would quit in 2 seconds. I can't, there's no music in this gym. Oh, fuck this. Right. The equipment isn't good enough. Fuck this.
I think, and this is the speech I was given to our team, is like, one, if you don't know where you're going to be in 5 years and understand exactly what your life's going to look like, you can't even envision that. So you're fucking lost and you'll never get there. And I was like, and two, you know, I was talking about that, Eat the Frog. Like this guy just had the ability to do the boring, mundane shit. And I talked about curling a phone every day and how heavy does that phone call get, and making 200 calls a day, and how heavy does that phone, and I talked to him like dumbbells, like, can you curl a 50-pound dumbbell? Can you curl a 100-pound dumbbell with one arm? And they're like, no. I'm like, cool. Well, that's how heavy that fucking phone is when you don't have a why, you don't have a purpose, like you don't have a fucking vision of where you want to go. Why the fuck would you make 200 calls? Why the fuck is somebody going to give you an objection you're going to fight for if you don't know why you're doing this? So I'm like, if you guys don't have a goal, you're a loser. And I was like, I challenge all of you, if you don't have a goal, go home tonight, turn everything off and write your 5-year goal. Don't be a loser. And I was like very harsh with them and very direct. And one of the guys reached out, like, God, I wrote it. And this is night and day difference. And he put up 4 deals one day, 3 deals the next day. Like,
boom.
You know, sorry, I was ADHD, that's awesome, but yeah, Arnold got me pumped up.
Yeah, that's a great way to end it, bro.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Is the book called Total Recall?
Probably.
All right. I see that.
Yeah.
Go and buy it. I'm going to watch it and then buy it to read what I already know from this show.
I got to finish off. I'll finish off probably soon. Enjoying it.
Catch y'all next week.
Peace.
Peace.